All right, buddy. Peace. Welcome to the Started Broadview College Football Show. Wherever or however you're listening, we're so grateful to have you here with us. As you guys know, I'm your host, Sean Cottle, and we are going to be previewing today one of, if not the biggest matchup in college football this weekend, on in week 2. And later on in the show, we are also going to be conducting the first iteration of our Heisman watch list for this 2024 college football season. So I know you guys are really excited about that. We're going to be doing all of this and then some, guys. But before we get started, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all of our latest content. And if you'd like to get exclusive content from the Started Broadview Show, be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, clicking on the search bar, and typing in Started Broadview Show. That way you can gain access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/StartedBroadviewShow. None of this is possible without you guys as fans, so we're so grateful and honored for all the love and support that you show us. And it's a blessing to have this platform to talk about football, college football, with you guys. So with that being said, guys, let's go and get right into it, shall we? Like I said, we got the biggest matchup of the week in college football between number 3 Texas and number 10 Michigan. Michigan, obviously reigning national champions from last season. Texas, new members of the SEC, the most potent, perhaps the most talented conference in college football. And Texas is coming off a huge victory against Colorado State, winning 52-0. As you guys recall, in our preview video for the Texas-Colorado State matchup last week, I talked about how I wanted to see how Texas's defense would fare against Colorado State, a team that likes to run the air raid system. And I wanted to see how how Texas's secondary would react to that spread offense, and if Texas would be able to create pressure specifically from the inside between the guards. And Texas was able to do that. The secondary looked proficient against in man coverage and against in zone coverage, and the tackles were able to generate pressure both against the run and against the pass, albeit against Colorado State, like I said. But I just wanted to see consistency. I wanted to see consistency on the defense side of the ball for Texas, and I saw that against Colorado State. And Michigan last week defeated Fresno State 30-10. And Michigan obviously looked proficient. They looked physical on the defense side of the ball, specifically at the linebacker position and on the outside edges. However, the offense is what concerned me for Michigan, as it did even last year. There were numerous occasions for Michigan where they struggled to get into a rhythm offensively, and quite frankly, they didn't really get into a rhythm until the second half of that game against Fresno State last week. But the offensive line for Michigan started to wear down Fresno State, and that created running lanes for Michigan, so they were able to create a couple of 10, 15-yard runs, and that's what started to separate Michigan from Fresno State. However, Michigan never got into a rhythm offensively. They never got into a rhythm throwing the ball, specifically downfield, 20, 25 plus yards or more. Never really got into that rhythm that I was expecting them or was looking for them to do against the Fresno State. And that's my concern for Michigan going into this game against Texas. Will they be able to generate enough offense against Texas? We know that Texas is a team loaded with talent on the offense side of the ball, with Quinn Ewers and Isaiah Bond, transfer from Alabama. And their running back, Gibson, who last week had 10 carries, 67 yards, and a touchdown. And Ringo, another talented receiver for Texas, who had 4 receptions for 70 yards. Will Michigan be able to score with Texas? Because Texas' offense is so talented, they're going to put up points regardless of the defense that they're playing against. So will Michigan be able to survive a possible shootout with Texas? That remains to be seen. That's the question going into this matchup. because the physicality that Texas has and can impose on the defense side of the ball, I believe will be enough to create stops, create enough 3-and-outs for Texas to give their offense good field position and also to give their offense opportunities to score. And if you're Texas, you're going to jump out early. It's in Michigan, at Michigan Stadium, and Texas has the line -7. Over under is at 42.5. So ESPN thinks that this game is going to be a particularly low scoring game. However, I will it be a low scoring game? I don't believe so. I believe that this is actually going to be a blowout to many surprises. I believe that Texas is going to win this game by a score of 31-10. I don't believe that Michigan's going to be able to get into a rhythm offensively. And this is going to be a game where Texas defense is going to make a huge statement, and they're going to show not just the rest of the SEC, but the rest of college football, that they'll be able to handle physical teams. And this will be a good showing for Texas going into SEC play later in the year. So I believe that this is a lot for Texas. Texas sees this as a great opportunity to not only, like I said, show the SEC that they're able to play a physical style of football, but also this is going to be a showing for Texas to prove that they might be the best team in college football outside of Georgia and Alabama. So like I said, I have Texas winning this game by a score of 31-10. I believe the score will be close, about 3-point lead or even tied going into halftime. However, in the third quarter is when Texas is going to create that separation from Michigan. And that's because, like I said earlier, Michigan's inability to be consistent on the offensive end, I believe that's going to be pretty profound and glaring during this matchup, because Texas secondary is very, very good. And because Michigan already does a below average job of throwing the ball downfield, Sarkisian is going to be okay with crowding the box more and completely taking away the run for Michigan, because he trusts his secondary, he trusts his corners and his safeties in man coverage. And I believe that's what's going to happen. And that's why, once again, like I said, Texas is going to win this game by a score of 31-10. And it's going to be a sign to come for both teams. You know, people are going to probably question whether Michigan is a playoff team after this loss, and people are going to question whether Texas is the best team in college football after this game. But you don't want to put the horse before the cart. You don't want to be too much of a prisoner of the moment. We still have to remember that it's only week 2, and both teams have a very long regular season schedule moving forward, both playing tough conferences in the SEC and the Big Ten respectively. So we have to, analyze and review this game just as this game, because we have to remember that a loss doesn't mean as much as it did last year as well, because it's a 12-team playoff format right now. And that's not the topic of this discussion. We'll save that for another day. But this loss doesn't mean as much. And I believe because the losses don't mean as much, that plays a psychological factor on the players and on the coaching staff and even on the program as a whole between each game. Because now if you're Texas or Michigan, you go into this game and you say, if I lose this game, it's okay. I might not have a chance of, really, because it's out of conference game, you still have a chance of winning your conference, which adds on to that factor. But say you lose this game, if you're Michigan, you say, okay, well, if I lose this game, that's okay. I can still win the Big Ten, and I can still make the playoff format. Even if I'm not a top 4 team, I'll still make the playoff as long as I'm in the top 12. That dynamic takes away from the pedigree and the gravitas of this matchup. Like, imagine if we had this matchup last year. my goodness, this would be, I mean, basically this would be Texas Alabama last year, because Alabama was ranked number 3 and Texas, I believe, was ranked number 10 or 11 last year when they met early in the year last year. If I'm wrong about that, one of you guys can correct me. But one of the beautiful things about last year's season was that Alabama lost that matchup, and they had to regain their structure, and they had to win out. They had to fight back to get to the conference championship game in the SEC, and it made each game during that process meaningful, and you got great football out of that team. And I'm concerned that because each game doesn't have as much weight and doesn't have as big of a factor on the end result at the end of the season, I'm worried that we're not going to be getting the best brand, the best version of football that we could possibly be getting. Which is why I am not a proponent of the 12-team format. I know a lot of people are. It's just my perspective. It is what it is. But let me know what you guys think. Are you guys a fan of the 12-team playoff format? And what do you guys think about this matchup between Texas and Michigan? Do you guys believe Texas is going to win this game on the road, or is Michigan going to pull off the upset, if you want to call it that? But let me know what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. And in our next segment, guys, we are going to be releasing the first iteration of our Heisman watch list for the 2024 season. So be sure to stick around for that, guys. You're not going to miss it. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. In case you missed the first segment of our show, we previewed the biggest matchup in college football this weekend between number 3 Texas and number 10 Michigan. And I discussed some of the keys to look for in that matchup and what impact it have on college football as a whole down the line going forward the rest of the season. And in this segment, guys, we are going to be conducting the first iteration of the Heisman watch list for the 2024 season. As you guys know, when we do this, we like to start from the bottom of the list to the top. So this list can be very fluid, as I always like to discuss. You guys know this. We've been doing this for a year now. This week we're going to start out with just 3 players on the list, but some weeks there might be 5, some weeks there might be 4, some weeks there might just be 2. And we're going to run this segment up until the end of the season until we have a Heisman Trophy winner. Just so you know, you guys, I'm pretty accurate with this. Just check out our shows from last year. I was pretty accurate from the jump, but, I digress. All right, so, guys, for this first iteration, we're going to start at number 3. Number 3 on our Heisman watch list is quarterback Jalen Milroe out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. All right, Alabama and Jalen Milroe last week defeated Western Kentucky by a score of 63-0. Now, if you look at the stat line for Jalen Milroe, it won't pop out. You won't say to yourself, "Oh, this is a Heisman Trophy winner," because he went 7-9 passing, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 10 carries for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. But listen. The numbers may look small, but look at how proficient it is. Like I said, he went 7 for 9, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Albeit, I get it, against Western Kentucky. And 10 carries, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's about 6. That's about 7 yards. A little under 7 yards a carry. Listen. The biggest skill set that Jalen Milroe needed to work on this offseason was his ability to step up in the pocket against pressure and throw the ball accurately within the scenes, within the numbers. We know how great of a deep ball thrower he is, but we wanted to see him make that progression, take that next step as an intermediate and short passer, accurate passer. And if you watch the film against Western Kentucky, that's what he did. That's what he was able to do. And obviously he's surrounded by talented receivers and Ryan Williams and Kobe Prentice. And he has Jam Miller and Justice Haynes in the backfield as well. So he has a plethora of talented players, not to mention Kendrick Law as well, who I believe is going to be a great addition or a great piece in that sort of slot back position for Alabama. But Jalen Milroe has shown that he has made improvements in his game, and he did all this while only playing up until the halfway point of the third quarter. And we always take that into account as well. But moving forward, I believe that Jalen Milroe is going to be on this Heisman watch list for majority of the season. And once Alabama continues to notch or gain big victories, albeit against perhaps Oklahoma, Texas, and Georgia when that time comes, Ole Miss, people are going to start to seriously consider Jalen Milroe as a Heisman Trophy candidate. And this game against Western Kentucky was the first showing for Jalen Milroe, the first showing that proves that he's the Heisman Trophy candidate, the first of many this season. But number 3, Jalen Milroe, like I said. And at number 2, we're gonna stick with the SEC, another quarterback, this time out of Ole Miss, and that is Jackson Dart. Listen. Jackson Dart was someone that was on many of people's Heisman Trophy lists, and it's completely understandable why. He showed tremendous control over the offense last year for Ole Miss, and he's picking up pretty much where he left off last season. Ole Miss looked extremely explosive last year. The only issue that Ole Miss had last year was their defense was, quite frankly, non-existent for much of the season, and that put a huge strain on their offense, a lot of pressure on their offense to have to score each and every possession. But their offense was so good that they were pretty much capable of scoring each and every possession, particularly towards the end of the season. But if we look at the numbers he put up last week against Furman, he went 22 for 27, 418 yards and 5 touchdowns. And once again, Jackson Dart is in the same position that Jalen Milroe is going to be. The more his team continues to win, the more he's going to be able to stake his claim as a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate, because he is leading a top 10 team, but also he plays in the toughest conference in football. And because of the style of offense that Ole Miss runs in Lane Kiffin, Jackson Dart is going to get a number of opportunities to throw the ball downfield. We know that he's an elusive runner, so there's going to be a lot of design runs for Jackson Dart as well with Ole Miss, and he's going to get a lot of carries as well, which is obviously going to help boost his Heisman Trophy legitimacy. And if we look at the stat line last week, let's look at how many rushing yards he had. I didn't write that stat down, but let's look and see how many rushing yards Jackson Dart had last week against Furman. He had 6 carries for 27 yards, and that's passable. That'll be able to work. But this is why, once again, why I believe Jackson Dart is going to have a legitimate chance of winning the Heisman Trophy. And the reason I have him above Jalen Milroe is simply because of the fact that his numbers just has more touchdowns. I understand against Furman, but this early on, that something that minute will be enough to be a separator. And also as we get further down the season and we get more film on the guys, things like that won't be as big of a factor in my perspective. Some people it might be. And at number one, guys, number one on our Heisman list for this week is once again another quarterback, this time out of the Big 12. He plays for who I believe to be is America's favorite college football team, and that is Colorado, and that is Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders last week against North Dakota State went 26-34, 445 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. The cause for concern with Shedeur Sanders in Colorado is how good Colorado is going to be. Colorado is only going to be a 500 team. I find it's going to be difficult to give Shedeur Sanders the Heisman Trophy at the end of the season. But if Colorado can find a way to be a playoff team, then I can almost guarantee that Shedeur Sanders will win the Heisman Trophy, and not just because of his play and his numbers, but also the narrative. Imagine that narrative. Colorado and Deion Sanders, his second year at Colorado, gets Colorado to the playoffs. Shedeur Sanders wins the Heisman Trophy in his last year. It's too perfect of a narrative, and we know that sports at the end of the day is all about entertainment. What makes good entertainment? Great narratives, great storylines. If you can find a great storyline and great narrative, that's what you're going to try to propagate. That's what you're going to try to project into the sport. And I'm not saying that the sports as a whole is scripted and everything's planned out. I'm not saying that. I'm not one of those conspiracy theorists guys. I hate to even use that term, but there are some commonalities, there are some consistencies, and there are some results that are preferred over others for the people that are at the heads of these organizations and these different sports leagues. And this is one of those storylines that would seem too perfect to pass up in Colorado. Like I said, Shedeur Sanders is going to have to play at a Heisman level for Colorado to be successful and for them to have a legitimate chance of not just possibly winning the Pac-12, but also making the playoff. Because based on what I saw last week, Colorado is going to struggle with pass protection. Also, we know they have a tremendous skill set, skill position players, but Shedeur Sanders is going to have these type of performances week in and week out if Colorado is going to have a legitimate chance of winning. So Shedeur Sanders is going to put up big numbers, I do believe. Will that lead to victories for Colorado? That is the question mark. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Shedeur Sanders is rightfully at number one on our list for the Heisman watch list? And if there's anyone who I didn't put on the list, who do you guys think should be on the list for the Heisman watch list? Let me know what you guys think. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and perspective. Leave it all in the chat room and in the comment section as well. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and perspective on this Heisman watch list going into week 2 of the college football season. But with that being said, guys, that is it for our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a wonderful show. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button as well. It goes a long way. None of this is possible without you guys as fans, so we're so grateful and honored for all the love, support that you show us. We'll be back again, guys, next week on Monday with another college football show. Have a wonderful weekend, guys. Continue to stay safe, be vigilant, make smart decisions. Until next time, peace.